Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're going to talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of Fear the Walking Dead. A great season premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I thought it was a really neat, interesting perspective where we start off with a character we don't really know, and that is Will, and we get his perspectives, like, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, it's been like 50 plus days since the bombs went off at the end of season 2. So obviously he's walking around in the suit. I mean, it's probably been more so, but like he was out and about for 50 days. So like it's definitely been longer. Because for him to automatically have like a radiation suit and a thing to trap the radiation, so like there had to be more time that had passed for things to kind of have shifted and changed for people to be able to adjust to this so quickly. Like, not unless he just got lucky and found that. Or it could have been where, I don't know. It definitely, like, he's at the very least been out there on his own for the past 50 days, but it could have been a couple months since the season 6 finale, because certain aspects about Will's story makes me go, yeah, that don't seem like that's something you can just have happen like a little over 50 days ago. It's like, no, that seems like that was probably like a good chunk of a time, not like a long time, but probably like it's been maybe a couple months. But the problem is, like, now searching the entire area, it's like finding food is pretty hard, because it's like, right, even people, the dead that have stuff on them, you have to be careful, because even the canned stuff, it's probably radiated at this point in time. He probably didn't bother eating that possum or whatever when he initially found it, just because it's like, well, the dead could have like started chewing on that too. It's most likely radiated too, so like, you know, there's like nothing. It's just like, man, the biggest middle fingers that Teddy's kind of left the entire place. Like, if you're a survivor in this area, you know, because that's a conversation later on too of like, yeah, like, you don't got to worry about those killed by the blast. You just have to worry about those that were killed by the radiation. I guess the blast was like, well, because we see like shadows on the wall, so I'm like, I guess it's kind of like a Hiroshima type of situation, sadly, that like the shadows left type of thing. So it's like anyone that was hit by initial blast is either dead or incinerated enough to the point like their brain's not left for them to become the living dead. But everyone that just died from the radiation there, and obviously that's a whole issue too of like, right, you don't want to you have to avoid them especially. It's interesting how that comes full circle because of the whole Grace thing back in season 5. Was like introducing that avenue. Or was that season? No, I think it was season 5, wasn't it? When they introduced like Grace and all that. I'm already blanking. A lot of that's blurring together, just like I said, because I watched it all at once. But it's interesting how that's coming back full circle now of it being an issue of like, right, be careful about the dead, avoid getting their blood on you. But also, it's like, we got other groups to worry about. Now, it's like, it wasn't just Teddy's cult people you have to worry about anymore. Now there's the stalkers, as Will calls them. They're basically people, like, finding the dead and stripping them of stuff. Why, specifically, who knows? Because it doesn't seem like they're Republic-related, because that's a whole other beast on its own. But it's like, what are these stalkers, like, up to? Why are they taking people's stuff? Like, are they doing something specifically to these bodies? Who knows? But the people who find Will later on, because he just kind of given up. He was just, either that place was a place with low radiation, but he just took the mask off. He was cooking the food because he just kind of gave up. It's just kind of like, I think at that point, he had just had nothing else to go for. So it's like, right, even if I have to like eat this, you know, and even later on, like the walkers are coming towards him, he just sits there because he's like, yeah, I've accepted it. That's why he'd already like, it's like, yeah, whatever happens, like, there's no more food here. I'm going to starve anyway, so I might as well just eat this dead, like, animal, even if it's radiated. It doesn't matter at this point. But then he gets rescued and gets taken to the tower where he runs into good old Victor Strand, like, once again, the cockroach. And then what they always say about cockroaches surviving, once again, I always have to state this, nothing against Coleman Domingo, the actor who plays Strand. He does such a fantastic job playing the douchebag that is Victor Strand, but I'm just talking specific about the character. I feel like I always got it, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm attacking like an actor or anything like that, because once again, that is a thing, so I feel like I have to like clarify that, but it's just like the character of Victor Strand is a cockroach. When you think about from the beginning of the series to where we are now, after everything, he always seems to be the one left standing, and I think that kind of adds more to that fuel of why he thinks like, oh, like this is my to like run and reign, even if I have to do it alone. But it's like, yeah, literally a nuclear fallout, and you still survived. Because isn't that the whole thing about like cockroaches would be like one of the few things that would survive a nuclear fallout? But nevertheless, he's running the tower, and it is interesting. Like he's pumping Will for information about him. It's like, yeah, he used to be a PR for a senator. People there can stay there if they serve some purpose. I'm like, what's up with the yoga people? I mean, I guess it's a necessary thing to kind of keep people calm and productive. So maybe that's where that lane of things comes from. But it's like, oh yeah, he's like, people can only stay there if they kind of serve some greater purpose. So I'm like, it's parallels you can draw to like how Virginia ran things. You can run parallels to how things get run in the Republic of like everyone kind of has like their position and stuff like that. Hell, even the Commonwealth, you can kind of make a comparison in that. It's interesting how like a lot of these outside societies, like Morgan's like place he was trying to build didn't operate like that. Alexandria, Hilltop, the Kingdom, Oceanside, none of them ran like that. So it's just interesting how like these places kind of have that in common of like, yeah, if you're here, you have to serve like a specific purpose. You have to do kind of a specific thing to kind of prove your usefulness. But Will for Victor, Will didn't meet the means of like, right, you don't share my vision in things. And so he was going to kick him back out. But then it turns out he has Alicia's necklace. And Victor's like, oh, take me to that place. Which obviously learning a little bit more. Because Victor hasn't left that place because he's like, oh, like, why should I ever leave? I have everything I need. So like he hasn't been out since he formed this place. So like obviously starting with him and Howard, it's like still miraculous that he built this place into what he built it into, but it's also like he's had experiences with building communities, whether it was in a stadium in season 4 with Alicia and her mom and Nick, or whether it was working for Virginia and everything, like and then even taking over things after Virginia died, like he's used to that type of rodeo, so he's able to like, just build something else, sending people out to gather more people. So like that's what, like, for the operation for the tower to be this stock full of people and all this stuff, it's definitely been more than like 50 days. So that's why I was kind of confused with the time frame. Once again, I made it clear on other reviews, I'm a nut job about, I need to know, I like knowing the time frame and like how much time has passed in certain regards. Maybe we'll get a little more clarity on that going forward throughout the season. An interesting thing about even the rain can prove to be dangerous, considering the conditions that the rain is just basically going to, I think, what is it, like it activates the, like, it can activate, like, the radiation, like, I don't know if it was, like, in the dirt or whatever, like, so rain can also, like, I don't know if it's necessarily, like, oh, like, because of just, like, precipitation and all that, that like the rain coming down is kind of be like radiation filled rain, or at the very least like when it rains it activates what's already like the radiation particles that are in the air or in the dirt, whatever, like they get reactivated, so you don't even want to be around when it's raining. So which I don't know, for whatever reason, like Death Stranding popped in my mind just then, but regardless, but it turns out Will let slip. It's like, oh, it's always the finer details that screw you over. It's like, oh, he's like, I find it funny. You claim that you had everything you want, yet you're still out here with me trying to find this woman. And it's like, how do you know it's a woman I'm looking for? I never specified that. It's like, who, at first I was like, wait, are you one of the cult people or something like that? But nevertheless, it turns out he just knows where Alicia is. Like, she was in the bunker, and so was he. So, because we know that when it all went down, like we saw at the end of season 6 finale, like the bunker, the door to the bunker, like where she was being held at, like behind that door, was broken open, so she was set free. Granted, it's not like she could go outside anywhere, because if she did, it'd be death. So, just because of the radiation and everything everywhere. But now it becomes a situation of, well, he knows exactly where Teddy was going to send her, so yeah, his men are dead, but Strand's never been the one that gets too sentimental unless it's people he really, really cares about. But other than that, it's like, screw it, and he moves on. I feel like the last death that really struck a nerve of him was, I don't know if John Dory Jr.'s did or not, like whether that hit a nerve with him. Like obviously it hit like Morgan, it hit like everyone, including obviously June the most, but I'm like, I don't know. I feel like Nick's death might be the last death that really struck a nerve for him, because him and like there was always a thing between him and Nick, like since the very beginning, like of how their meetings and them kind of working together. So it's like, I think that's the last death that probably really struck a nerve with him, I think. But regardless, it's like they're just a means to an end. It's like, hey, they're replaceable. And so he's trying to find Alicia because he's saying like, oh, I want to find her just to prove her wrong. Like, oh, she had all these notions and ideas about it. It's like, no, I'm going to show her, look at me. I'm on top of everything. I'm thriving. And, at the end of the world, I'm thriving. So I'm kind of king. I'm top dog in this. So, but he goes to like the tower that Will was earlier with the lighthouse, and ended up kind of finding out like, okay, this is where she is. Will rolls up and kind of gives us some background on some of this. Well, because there's still a lot we didn't get information about. Because he gets specific about, like, Alicia, like, kind of got stuck in there with all of Teddy's people. And I guess it's just, like, Alicia being who she is, it's like, she ended up kind of taking she ended up kind of being forced to become what Teddy wanted her to be, but I think she probably still strived to go like, no, I'm still going to go my own way. Like, a lot of these followers are probably like, no, we need to follow you, because that was... I don't know whether that was like Teddy informed everyone that was his plan, that he wanted Alicia to be like the next lead at the end of the end of the world, or whether or not like it just happened to work like that. But it's like she didn't want to become what Teddy wanted her to be. Whether she did or not is yet to be seen. But essentially, the reason why he's out and about and he's not with Alicia is because at some point he did something. He was supposed to do something, but he decided not to do it. It was going to be something that was going to help everyone except her. And, Strand's like, whatever it is, it had to be super bad for her to kick you out. But essentially, it's like the whole conversation of like, Alicia's right, like, or at least like, he's like, Senator Valdez taught me this of like, if you want to lead, you can't lead alone. And we've seen that kind of aspect resonate of not leading alone amongst a lot of the more successful communities, which, yes, said successful communities are all kind of screwed over right now. Morgan's went kind of kaput. Alexandria's barely holding on. There is no more kingdom. There is no more hilltop. There's only like Alexandria. Obviously, because I think we'll even reference like being from like Oklahoma is where it's like, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like how that, is there any correlation to like probably not, like he probably has no like had no ties or connections to anything going on in World Beyond. Once again, I still preface this by being like, I think, and once again I could be wrong, World Beyond takes place like 2 years in the past, because the time frame makes it seem like it's still only been 10 years since the fall, whereas The Walking Dead makes it seem like, I think The Walking Dead specifically with the Negan episode was like, yeah, but it's been 12 years. So that's why I'm like, I think World Beyond is at least 2 years behind. I still don't know what the correlation is, but like whether this and The Walking Dead are still parallel to each other or not, I don't know. Because obviously it's like their time frames were a little different. Because this will definitely have been at least a couple, like, because didn't it start like 2015? So like it would at least be like 5 years behind The Walking Dead. So maybe where it's like, it's been 12 years for The Walking Dead, and maybe it's only been like 7 in Fear time. Because not necessarily every season is 1 year. They just did so many time skips in like The Walking Dead to kind of compensate for that. So it is kind of like 2020, 2021 in the Walking Dead. I'm going on a tangent. Like I said, I can get like very obsessive about the time frames and stuff like that. But essentially, going off my like tangent and stuff like that, Will did immediately know who Victor was the moment he met him because he heard about him from Alicia, and it's like the reason why he's out and about is because he was hoping to get something that would basically make Alicia kind of take him back into the community and kind of, he could kind of find his way back, kind of quote unquote home. But he thought like, right, if I can bring you to Alicia, then maybe she'll take me back in, because it's like, he's like, you're not the man that she thought, like you're not the man she wanted you to stay. That's always been Victor's biggest flaw. It's just like he can never stay 100% on the good side of things like people want him to be. Like he kind of gives into his worst natures, kind of giving in more to his like selfish, self-preserving side that he doesn't like the way people would want Rule, like kind of like a Morgan type of way. It's like, no, that doesn't get stuff done. Like that's kind of, Strand looks at that as kind of a leadership, a weakness, because your leadership kind of is the reason why everything kind of ultimately fell apart. Like you kind of like bowed down to Virginia and just like everything went to shit then. It's like, well, you played your own role in things kind of going bad. I mean, hell, you even tried to kill Morgan last season, you piece of crap. So it's like, but it's like, yeah, like Alicia wouldn't even recognize you if she saw you right now. And Morgan, Victor's like, yeah, you're probably right, but it's like, right, you might not notice, but I gave her that necklace. It's like, yeah, I did. It's like, it was so she wouldn't forget who she is, but he was like hoping on some level that, maybe he wouldn't forget who he is. But he tried to attack Will, but Will got the upper hand and he's like, all right, that's the third time you try to kill me, Victor. And he's walking away. I was like, are you really just going to? And it's like, oh, okay. Because the entire episode, I'm like, Victor's going to kill Will the moment he gets a chance, But I was like, oh, he's still alive, and there's a whole bunch of walkers. They're people from the bunker, but it's like, wait, if they're here, what about Alicia? Victor picks up the axe, got the sword in hand, slicing and dicing, gets to work. Interesting parallels and timing, just because, like, Rosita, knuckle in one hand, kind of like bat-like weapon in the other, kind of did some work during the storm in the, like, I guess, 1/3, I don't know, what would you call that? A third mid-season? I don't know, because it wouldn't technically even be the mid-season. And tangents and all that aside. Part 1 finale of season 11, I guess, is how you phrase that. But it's just an interesting thing. And Will got the light started and just like, right, so you can have some sea out there. So he's doing his thing. And ultimately, they both have each other back. And even Victor's like, why would you save me, And it's just because, well, they have a better chance kind of getting to Alicia, because it's like, at the end of the day, Victor even admits it later on. It's like, right, he didn't come out here, all the way out here, just to prove Alicia wrong. It's just, he had to prove to himself that he didn't need her. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, yeah, he's worried about her. They ultimately make their way to the bunker, going to like try and find their way there together. But at the bunker, like, everyone's gone. Like, we don't know what happened. Alicia left a note for Will saying Padre, and she painted something on the wall. And it looked like it was her following someone else. At first, I was like, is that Morgan or is that someone else? And even Will never really gave us an explanation for the Padre thing. Like, is it a place? Is it a thing? He's like, I don't know. But whatever it is, it's most likely going to get a kill. Like, he had some idea, notions of, like, what it might be. But it was supposed to, I guess, be something like, I don't know. A key to something. I guess something or anything in the aftermath of all of this. So it is a conversation of, they still want to both find Alicia, and it's like, we can do it, together, at the very least. So they make their way back to the tower, and I was like, oh man, I'm surprised. I was like, I was so certain Victor was going to kill Will. I was like, no, it seems like it's all good. And it's like, oh, like Alicia, she'll see the light, but it's like, no, it's drawing the walkers. But it turns out this is actually what Victor wanted. It's like, no, he's basically building a moat for himself. Pulling a little bit of a Whisperers, not necessarily, but kind of similar thing. But it's like, yeah, if anyone gets attracted to the place, like the walkers are meant to be like a barrier that keeps people from getting there. It's like isolating himself even more in his castle, like doubling down on it. And it's like, oh yeah, like he doesn't want Alicia to come. It's like, and then like Will tries to talk him down. He's like, no. I was like, I kept being panicked. I was like, wait, is this it? I was like, you haven't done it the entire episode? And then he throws him off the side of the roof. I'm like, okay. And I love how it's just kind of like, so you know other people might come. And he's like, no, let them come. Because if whoever tries to come here, I'm not worried about even Morgan Jones. If anyone tries to come here, they'll have to get through the sea of dead before they can even get to me. But I'm like, because for him, it's like, who he was before, like, caring about, like, Alicia and stuff like that, he has to cut that out of himself. It's like, I need to be alone. It's the only way you can survive in this world. The only way he can continue. Like, he can't make things better when he's held back by such pathetic notions of love. Like, that gets in a way. It's like, you kind of have to be a little pragmatic. You have to be a little cold-hearted. It's the only way to survive in this world. It's the only way he's ever survived. So, he's doubling down on his worst nature rather than giving into his better nature. And that's always been his biggest thing. It's like he flip-flops so much. That's why Daniel hates him so damn much. It's like you flip-flop. You're a good guy 1 minute, but then you just like your cowardice and just your very nature in some regards just kind of gives over to like I'm do whatever it takes to survive. I'm going to be, because even Will tried to say like, you can't like keep running a place like this, a place like built on like, no, these people don't care for you. Like, they're just scared that you'll throw them out at the end. But it's like, you know, is it better to be loved or be feared? I feel like Victor is one of those people to be like, no, why choose? You can have people love you and fear you. Or maybe for him, it's like, no, screw it. If, you know, it's not even about love or fear. It's about getting what you want. You know, what I want, and by you helping me get what I want, you're helping yourself get what you want. Maybe that's Victor's perspective on the whole thing, but it's kind of like, I thought it was sad because I was like, man, getting that perspective of like, yeah, you start the episode following it through Will's perspective, and lo and behold, he's dead. Because even more for Victor, it's like, oh, because he found out that, because the commonality between him and Will is they both love Alicia. You know, and it's like, neither one got the opportunity to, well, we don't know what went down between Will and Alicia. There's so much story that we'll never know now, unless we get to Alicia's side of things, because Will's gone now. But, you know, Victor never got an opportunity to tell her he loved her, and now he may never, because it's like, he's like, after what I'm doing now, showing, like, it's by killing Will, it's like he's killing that part of himself and his connection to Alicia, isolating himself from everyone he knows. It's like he's cutting all ties, because it's like, I need to be alone. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, you know, type of situation. So once again, just kind of giving into those darker, devilish natures that he's always had. But it's just, like, my point was, like, you followed Will the entire episode. Like I said, I was kind of scared at any moment, but I was like, well, they did, like, if he does die, it's going to most likely be, like, I kept being worried, but I'm like, oh, he survived. Oh, he's still alive. Oh, Victor didn't kill him. It's like, nope, he kills him in the last minutes of the episode, which I'm like, oh. Like I said, you followed him the entire time through. Like, I'm trying to think with The Walking Dead, that rarely happens. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, you get people's perspectives. You get people's perspectives. You follow along their perspectives in certain regards. But usually, like, even if you do, like, it's not like they immediately die. They might die sometime later because you got introduced. Like, Fear the Walking Dead, for example. We met, like, Dory. Like, we got introduced to him first. Granted, it took, like, 2 seasons, like, 2 full seasons and a half season before they killed him. Even, like, Enid, like, what was it, the beginning of season 6, you got introduced to her in The Walking Dead, and she doesn't die until near the end of season 9. So, like, see what I mean? It's usually you're with a character for a while. Like, I don't know if there's ever been that quick a turnaround of introduction to death, you know? Because I know, oh God, is it Tyler Williams? I can never remember that's his middle name and his last name. The thing I always go to is Everyone Hates Chris. Most recently, I'd probably say is, God, what's its face? Because he was in it with Lauren Cohen, Whiskey Cavalier. He was in the show for maybe, like, a couple episodes, and then, like, the moment he joined, like, the main group, he was with them for, like, 5 more episodes before his character brutally died. So it's like, the turnaround is pretty quickly. It's like, once again, it's that, you know, thing of just like, yeah, don't get attached to any character, but it's like, he just didn't, especially because you got his point of view, you didn't expect him to kind of get done like that, you know? So that was, I mean, I guess that's kind of throwing you for a loop, but it's like, right, the main person in this episode wasn't Will. Like, you start from his perspective, but it's always been Victor's story, and I think that's kind of like the interesting structure of it too. Of like, no, this is my story. I'm the one at the end. I'm the one that survived. I almost wanted to say I'm the one who knocks. But nevertheless, I'm interested to see. I've gotten bits and pieces of the trailer. This show, there's like multiple trailers. I know there's like a first look which just has like some bits from, I think, maybe this episode or some other episodes, and then just like the actual trailer. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see who we pick up with. Like I said, there's a lot of groups. There's everyone with Al's group with the Republic. There's Morgan and Grace. There's Papa Dory and June, and wherever Alicia is in a grand scheme of things. So it's like multiple groups we can kind of keep up with. So it's going to be interesting to see who we pick up with next episode. I avoided the teaser, so I have no idea. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.